Hello, I'm Deb Milligan. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist and a member of Seed Wellness, and I'm here today to give some of my top tips if you're having problems sleeping. Why are there times when it almost seems your brain is trying to keep you awake just when you really need to sleep? So the two common problems that people talk to me about are having an overactive brain, not being able to switch off, just as if your brain's still in fifth gear and won't stop going over something or planning something or solving something. And the other is a worrying brain, how current problems seem to just get bigger and more complex at night and you just can't stop worrying. Particularly in the current situation where all of us are dealing with so many changes and difficulties, there's even more for our brains to be constantly busy with, adding to any anxiety we might already be feeling. But the brain's job is to keep us safe, and that means having a really good threat detection system with alarms and alerts to get us to notice the presence of threats and be ready to face these or run away from them. And it's our classic fight and flight response that I'm sure you've heard of. So to our 21st century brains, this has become dealing with stuff. It's being constantly aware of everything we have to get done, succeed and achieve, react to each and every day, packing as much as possible into lives. Every challenge, responsibility, deadline, always this dealing with everything from endless emails that have to be answered, over full diary commitments, demands of work, demands of family, and finally collapsing exhausted into bed. And at that point, our brains seem to want to continue to problem solve or start trying to plan that extremely important thing you have to deal with tomorrow. So we battle to get to sleep, desperately trying not to think about all these things racing around in our heads. Unfortunately, we can't expect our brains and minds to come to a sudden stop and switch off just in that instant. In order to stop effectively, we first need to learn to slow down. Just like driving a car, you don't typically drive at 90 miles an hour and then slam on the brakes. You work back down through the gears and come to a smooth, comfortable stop. And that's the same with our brains. All this time we're in this dealing with stuff mode, the signals to our brains are all about staying alert. Because to the primitive subconscious part of our brains, we're dealing with threats of failure, of missing something, of making mistakes, of not being fully prepared. And it's totally incompatible with the I need to sleep now mode. Our brains are telling our bodies and minds to stay aware and stay alert. So to switch off enough to get to sleep, we need effective signalling of calm and safe and let go of this alert state and really relax. And it's not enough to think of a bit of calm breathing when we get to bed. We'll think that'll do the trick. So my first tip is we need to start preparing for good sleep much earlier in the evening. Think about how you spend your evening and ask yourself if what you're doing is maintaining alert state or calming it. And then look at what changes you can make that drop you into that lower gear and start to build feelings of calm, safety and relaxation. You may think you're chilling out by watching TV or gaming, but if the subject of what you're doing is winning a football match or saving the world, or the news on the latest spread of coronavirus, your subconscious is just going to perceive these as stuff to deal with, in other words, threats, and do everything it can to keep you in that alert state. What we need are things that signal all is well, we are safe, before even heading to bed. If you're watching TV, try to select something light-hearted and mentally undemanding. If you want to follow the news, do so in the morning or lunchtime, but not from mid-evening onwards. Stimulation like this isn't what your subconscious needs to be persuaded that you can relax and go to sleep. Set an earlier deadline in the evening for a last check of those emails or social media. Dim the lights. Consider what would make your immediate environment feel more relaxing. Maybe it's having gentle music. Maybe it's having a nice soak in the bath, doing some mindfulness or mindful breathing, but find the things that work for you as those signals of safety and calm to improve your levels of relaxation. Once you slow down from earlier in the evening, you'll be in a much better state mentally for the transition to sleep because your brainwaves and metabolic rate will be slowing in response. Now, my second tip is allow yourself to worry. The more we try not to worry about something, the more it just seems to stay with us, often with the worry and anxiety getting bigger, not smaller. So try intentional worrying. Find a specific time for real, thorough, intentional worrying. Think of everything that's on your mind at the moment that's worrying you. Make a list. Read through it. Note all the things you've absolutely no control over, so there's nothing that you can or need to do tonight. But then circle or mark the things you can do something about. Maybe now, maybe in the morning. This list will help you make a start tomorrow on whatever these things are that require your attention. And because you have your list, there's no risk that you'll forget them, so it's safe to let them go for a few hours. By doing this, you quieten the part of your mind that's causing the worry and anxiety to keep increasing, simply by acknowledging and expressing it. The part of your brain that worries is the same part that problem solves, and this is the bit you want to close down for the night. The more you try this and learn to let go even for a short time, the more your mind will learn to relax and feel calmer and safer and allow you to sleep. So what if despite all this you find you suddenly start thinking about something you're trying not to think about? So my last tip is, don't try not to think about something. Trying not to think about something is an impossible concept for our brains. It's like trying to get a puppy not to chew your shoe when all he sees is that it's a great chew toy. The more you try to stop him, the more he focuses on the shoe. Our brains simply don't have the programming to not think about something. Try this as an example. Think about your best friend dressed up as, let's say, the Easter Bunny. Get a good picture in your mind? And now, don't think about that. Do not think about that person dressed as the Easter Bunny. See? Your brain has to think about the thing you're not trying not to think about in order to try not to think about it. So when we lie awake saying, I mustn't think about whatever it is, our brains instead just keep thinking of that thing. So what can we do? Back to the puppy analogy. The only way to get that puppy to lose interest in the shoe is to turn his attention to something different and better to focus on. It's the same for our minds. We need to turn our thoughts to something better. Pay attention to something more appropriate, more helpful for that moment. There are various techniques that work here, and if you're unfamiliar with them, I'm very happy to teach any of you that want to contact me. Things like breath work, mindfulness, visualization. They take a bit of preparation and practice, but are extremely effective. In simplest terms, it's about having a better alternative for your mind to focus on. Take your attention away from the thoughts causing busy brain and off instead to somewhere or something calming, soothing and relaxing. So there you are, some tips for better sleep that I hope you'll find useful. If you're interested to know more or do any one-to-one work that we can still do over Skype or FaceTime, I'll be very happy to hear from you. Thanks for listening.